just want to get back to the Mishnah, because it's an interesting question in halacha. The Mishnah says, "Kol mokum sheish kiddushin ve'ein aveira." Where you have kiddushin, where the marriage is effective and it's a permitted marriage. Havlad holech achar hazohar. The child identifies with the paternal side, with the father. Ve'ezu, and what is an example of that? Zu kohenes leviv Yisraelis. Regardless of what her pedigree is, her father, she's a Bas Kohen, Bas Levi, Bas Yisrael. Based on who she marries, a kosher Jew, that will determine what the pedigree of her child is. She marries a Kohen, although she's a Bas Yisrael, her child's a Kohen. She's a Bas Kohen, she marries a Levi, the child's a Levi. She marries a Yisrael, the child is Yisrael. Shenosul Kohen Levi Yisrael. Okay, now let's discuss this. So now there's an argument. It's a very interesting argument. The Gemara discusses, and this way we rule, that a ger is permitted to marry a mamzer, a mamzeres. Because we rule that kal gerim einu kal, that the congregation of gerim is not classified as a congregation. Torah says lo yovel mamzer kal Hashem. A mamzer is not permitted to marry into the kal Hashem. So if kal gerim is not a kal, therefore the ger is permitted to marry somebody who's not legitimate. Okay. So now the question is this: a ger marries a regular woman, Jewish woman. He's permitted. He's a kosher Jew, marries. Now, he has a child. Let's say a ger has a kosher wife and he wants to marry a mamzeres. To have a co-wife, two wives. One's a mamzeres, one's a kosher woman. It's not a problem. He's permitted to marry a mamzeres. He has two wives. This is my mamzeres, this is my kosher wife. The old days, when people had more than one wife, there's nothing wrong with it, okay? Because he's permitted. Now he has a child. If we're saying a marriage which is permitted, he marries a kosher woman, kosher woman, kosher Jew, Jewish woman, Jewish, and now they have a son. If it was, the Mishnah says, when you have kiddushin and ein bo aveira, so that's clear. A ger marries a regular Jewish woman, kiddushin and ein bo aveira. Now she has a child, and we say the child identifies with the father. So if he identifies with the father, he's a ger. So if that's the case, is the son now permitted to marry mamzeres? He was born, he's not a convert. He's a son of a convert, and his mother is a full Jewish woman. No, but I'm going according to the principle set in the Mishnah. The Mishnah sets a principle.
Right.
When you have a kosher marriage, and it's permitted, the child identifies with the father. Now who's the father? The father's a ger. So if the father's a ger, regarding his pedigree, he doesn't have a pedigree of he's not a regular Jew, right? He doesn't have portion. He's not part of any shevet. I want you to listen first, okay? Then you'll answer your questions, okay? So the question is he permitted to marry mamzeres? So Tos's position later is he's permitted to marry mamzeres based on the principle of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says if a marriage is permitted and there's no transgression regarding that marriage, the child assumes the status of the father. No, he married a kosher woman. A ger marries he marries a Bas Kohen. A ger marries a Bas Kohen. Permitted marriage. No. That's the Mishnah. Of course the child's a mamzer. The defect always identifies with the, I'm talking about a ger marries a regular kosher Jewish woman, a Bas Kohen. A Bas Kohen Gadol. A ger is permitted to marry the daughter of a Kohen Gadol. Okay? And now they have a child. So the grandson of the Kohen Gadol now, no, he's not a ger. He's a kosher Jew. Is he permitted to marry a mamzeres? That's our question. That's the question. Wait a second. So Tosa says, based on the principle of the Mishnah, koshesh b'kedushin bein ba'aveiro, the pedigree, we identify the child with the father. If you go according literally, the prescription of the Mishnah, the child identifies with the father, and he has the same classification as the father. The father has no restriction, he should have no restriction. And that's Tosa's position. The Rambam says he himself is not permitted to marry mamzeres. He's considered even though his father was able to, because he's a ger. The son is the son of a ger, but his classification is not ger. Wait. But if you go according to the classification of the Mishnah, you're not reading the Mishnah.
father is not. Who says that the father?
You read the Mishnah? I'd like to read the words of the Mishnah. What does that mean? The child identifies with the male. So what does that mean?
Jew.
Zachor? No, it doesn't mean Jew. Doesn't mean Jew.
No, it means the father's the convert. Now the kid is a Jew. Why is this a convert?
It's not true. It's not true. If he's a goy, the child's a Jew. If a father's a non-Jew and the mother's Jewish, is the child a Jew?
Yes.
Full Jew.
Yes.
Okay. So what are you talking about? So he doesn't identify with the male. You can be a Jew without identifying with the male. Oh, wait. Good. That's how the Mishnah explains the Rambam. The Rambam learns, but the Mishnah says it's limited. Wait. Good. It's speaking. So which means, we'll explain it this way. If a person has pedigree, the pedigree transfers onto the child. But if it has no pedigree, a ger is not a pedigree. A ger is neutral. Then it does not identify with the male. You understand? If the father's a Kohen, even though the woman's a Bas Yisrael, the identity of the child identifies with the father, because the father has a pedigree. Is he Kohen? Is he Levi Yisrael? But let's say he has no pedigree. There's nothing to identify him with. And that's why it says Ezu. What is an example of this? Kohenes, Levi, and that depends if she marries Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. But what about a ger? Ger is not a pedigree. So if it's not a pedigree, the child doesn't assume his status. So what if he's a kosher Jew? So if he's a kosher Jew, then what is he? Kosher Jew is not permitted to marry a mamzer. He's not permitted because lo yovo mamzer kal Hashem. Okay?
Because the mother say? Because he's not a pedigree, he goes to the mother? Is that what we're saying?
No, which means the father cannot classify the child. He's a regular, ordinary Jew. Torah says an ordinary Jew is not permitted to marry a mamzer. So therefore, that's because a ger does not give a classification. It's only the convert himself. I'll give you an example. So the Mishnah says it's a kal v'chomer. If a non-Jew has relations with a Jewish woman, and she conceives from the non-Jew, her child, is he permitted to marry a mamzer? Right? A non-Jew impregnates a Jewish woman. They have a child. That child, the father's a goy, is not permitted to marry a mamzer. So how could you say if a ger legally marries a Jewish woman, his child could marry a mamzer? Where it's not Jewish, the father's a non-Jew, can't marry a mamzer. So they said it's not really a comparison. It's not a comparison. Because a non-Jew has no identity, period. Right? There's no identification. This child is equivalent, he has no father. But the ger, it is his father, because he's a Jew. So maybe if it's his father, he identifies with the father. So you could differentiate. The kal v'chomer is a weak kal v'chomer. Okay? So the Rambam's really based on Ezu. Examples are specifically limited to the Mishnah where it's Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. Oh. The tribes, exactly. Okay, or we're not saying tribe; it's more general. Yisrael. Yisrael's a pedigree. You're part of what? You're an original Jew. Definitely. Yep. But it's a machlokes the Rambam. Tosas Shita, his position is the child assumes the status classification of the father. As the father can marry mamzeres, the child can marry mamzeres. The Ram. Right. Correct. You can marry. You mean the restriction? There's no restriction.
All the male offspring of a ger have the status.
Well, it's not only the male; it's even the woman. When we speak about this son, it's not only a son; it's a daughter. According to Tosas, if a ger has a child from a kosher Jewish woman, the child, and it's a girl, the girl takes on the status of the father. So she doesn't have the restriction as the convert does. So she can marry a mamzer. No. Cohen something else.
Can a Kohen marry a woman who's the daughter of a kosher Jewess the father was a girl, was a girl. I thought the Kohen could do such a thing.
Well, we'll see. We'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment.
Tosh was saying no,
We'll see. That's a whole different thing. That's a different
because
thing.
it turns on this. I mean,
A Kohen's not permitted to marry a Gioris.
I understand, but it's a daughter.
We'll
of
see.
a
That's the
kosher
Gemara
Jew.
later.
But this
That's
child
like
is a
Tosa would
Jew.
say that.
We speak about a cholo. A cholo marries a kosher Jewess. What's her child regarding a Kohen? It's machlos tanoim. Whether the wife is the equivalent of a mikveh. The wife somehow purifies the child, and therefore her child, although the father was a cholo, her child is married. Her daughter is permitted to marry a Kohen.
Not a halal.
It's not a chalola. Chalola.
Depends how you read the
Weakness.
Mishnah. So it sounds like
Well, that's what we'll discuss in the Gemara.
The weakness of Tosfos' position, it seems, is when you read the next section in the Mishnah, where it says, if it is a non-kosher shidduch that follows the woman.
It says wherever the defect lies,
Yes.
the child assumes that defect. Assumes that.
Yeah, it seems that the child, but if there's no defect, then it's certainly.
No, but it's understood. If a ger marries a mamzeris, and that's the Gemara's question. The Gemara asks, according to the principle of the Mishnah, there has to be avera for the defect to carry on to the child. So what about if a ger marries a mamzeris? Nobody argues the child's a mamzer, correct? Wait a second. What?
The legal marriage.
A ger.
Ger marries a mamzeres.
It-
Right.
The child's a mamzer, legal. And the Gemara asked that as a question.
Yeah.
So you see, and that was the difficulty. So the same thing over here. Even though it's permitted, so the defect carries over regardless. Okay? So the Gemara says, well, that's the exception. It's only specifically within a certain context. Beyond that, it does carry over. Okay, let's see. So we have the Mishnah. Just review it. Kol mokshish kiddushin v'ina veiro havalat holech achara zocher. So if you just have that alone, we have a little bit of a problem with the Rambam, right? Then, if that would be the case, the child of a ger who marries a kosher Jewish woman, he should assume the status of a father. But when the Mishnah goes into the example, Me'ezu, what is an application of this principle? Kohenes, Levi, Yisrael, Shenosu, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, only with the pedigree. If there's a pedigree, the child assumes the pedigree. But if there's no pedigree, then the child does not assume the status of the father, not to have restrictions. It's not a what? Otherwise, the Mishnah should say, Yisrael who marries, a ger who marries a Yisraelis, right? Which is even a greater chiddush. It's a greater chiddush, right? The Mishnah doesn't give that as an example.
Are we saying that a ger does not have the status of even of a Yisrael? Because
He's a
he's a
Yisrael
Jew.
without many restrictions, without the restrictions of a regular Jew.
So he's really not.
He's a full Jew, but he doesn't have the because since he's not an original Jew, he doesn't have many restrictions. Well, even the son also has them. Right. So but here we're differentiating. Regarding the restriction applies to the son, although the son has no share in the land because he has no identity as a member of one of the Shvatim. Okay. He does not have the restriction.
then you have to maintain the knowledge of this branch of David. They always have kind of they're always considered David.
But it always has the male line straight. Has to be the male line. Let's say his father.
Right.
Let's say the daughter marries a regular man.
Yeah.
Now they have a child, so that child identifies with the father, right? Right.
But the male side is
If
they
it's
gave forever.
But we know if a Jewish man marries a convert, then the child will follow the father.
definitely identifies with the father, correct? No, it's always that. Definitely. That's not even the question. That's Yesh Kiddushin Ein Aveiro. So if you're Shevet Yehuda, the pedigree identifies with the father. Definitely no question. That's what we just discussed. So even according to Tosas, it has to be male converts, direct line. Because the moment one of them should marry, let's say it's a daughter marries somebody from one of the tribes, their child identifies with that father, right? And that's the Mishnah. Hakol olech achar hazochar. It identifies with the male. Okay. Well, that's true in either case. That's unrelated to our discussion right now. That's unrelated to our discussion, correct? No. Why? There's not a consideration. It's a story in the Torah. The son of the Canaan of the Mitzri, the one who blasphemed Hashem and he was put to death. What was the story? His mother was from Shevet Dan, and he wanted to have a share in the land. They said, "You have no share." So he went to Moshe and whatever's, and he blasphemed Hashem. So they put him to death. Why? Because he had no portion in the land. His mother was a full Jewess, but his father was what? Was a Mitzri. He was Jewish, but he had no share. He couldn't identify with a Shevet. So the ger is no different. He has no the ger, although he's a Jew from both sides, the mother and father, but he has no share in the land. Can't have more than the father had. The ger.
They never had a share. It was a gift. Whatever it is that you can have, it must have been a gift. They never had a share in the land.
They never had a share in the land. I mean, but Tzipora, Moshe's children identified with him. They were Levium, although she was a convert. Like you said, David, right? Boaz is Yehuda, and he has the greatest pedigree, and his child from Rus is what? Is Yehuda, Shevet Judah. Okay. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. But same thing. So did you see the proof from there also? Still doesn't make a difference. The question: did they marry their sisters from other mothers, or did they marry Canaanites? This question: who they married the Shvatim? Okay, so we'll follow this principle that if it's considered a valid marriage, so then the child identifies with the male, with the paternal side. Okay. If the marriage is effective and there's aveiro, then the child identifies with the defect. So if a kosher Jew marries a mamzeres, the kiddushin is effective. The child's a mamzer. According to Rabbi Akiva, what's the vezu zu almonel kohen godel, gush v'chadutz l'kohen hedjot, mamzeres nesim l'Yisrael. These examples. No, you can marry. No. Let's say. Wait a second. If a person gives a ring that says "Harei Mugdeshesli," it doesn't say "Kedas Moshe Yisrael." Is it a marriage? It is. Of course, it's a marriage. It's a marriage. It's a marriage.
The concept of kiddushin has to conform to what the
No. That's the Gemara in Yevomis. Moses in Yevomis. We discussed this yesterday. According to Rabbi Kiva, it's chayvi lavim. Marriage is not a marriage.
It's just a union.
It's like marrying a woman where it's like an incestual relationship. As you can't marry your sister because there's a prohibition. It's a forbidden sexual relation, although it carries the liability of koris. Reb Kiva says any prohibition, if you marry the woman, the marriage is not effective. That's Reb Kiva. That's Shimonat Teimoni. We will like Shimonat Teimoni. It's only if it's koris. But if it's any other forbidden sexual relationship, if it's only limited to malkos, the marriage is a marriage. It's a marriage. It's all based on psukim, the arguments.
You're not supposed to, but it's so.
You violate. So if you have relations, you get malchus. The marriage is a marriage. If she commits adultery, it's considered an adulterous affair, and she's put to death for adultery. Okay? So that's this kiddushin, but yesh aveira. that's how Tosa shows. The anonymous Mishnah here is following the position of Shimon HaTeimani, and we rule this way. Kiddushin. If it's a union where there cannot be kiddushin, this is like a brother marries a sister. There's no kiddushin. Avayesh alacherim kiddushin. But each one of the parties who's involved, she can marry another Jew, and he can marry another Jew. But they have relations, and they have a child, Avlad Mamzer. See, here they're creating it. See, before we're talking about transfer of defect. Here this is creating the defect, right? That's the difference. One who engages with one of the forbidden sexual relations in the Torah. They have no relevance to marriage, period. Not within this context and any other context. Havalat kamosa. The child takes on the status of the woman, which is what? The child of a shivcha kananis or a non-Jewish woman. A Jew has relations with her. The status of the child has a child from her that identifies with the woman. Okay? Be the same thing. A rabbinic marriage. There's certain times they annul the marriage. You know, the Gemara says the Chacham sometimes give greater force to a rabbinic law than a Torah law, because otherwise you're not going to respect the rabbinic law. Right? For the question of chizuk, they have to fortify their law, otherwise it's going to be discredited. It will be ignored. Okay, kol mokashesh kiddushin. No. Right. Yeah, that will be discussed in the Gemara.
Union came about the artificial union.
That's not a union. According to our Moshe Feinstein, that's not a union.
Okay.
That's fertilization.
Does it still follow the father? It's called
Yes.
because of Jewish sperm.
The father's the father. The father's the father.
It's considered the father.
So let's say the child.
Could be a
No, definitely. Well, it depends who the woman is. If she's not Jewish,
No, she's Jewish. I mean,
be a Kohen, 100%.
could be a Kohen.
That's why Ramosha, who's very lenient in this area, he says you should always use the sperm of a non-Jew, not of a Jew. Because with a Jew, you can have very serious problems. Ultimately, you can end up with incest. Because let's say a woman is inseminated with a Jew's sperm, and nobody knows the lineage of that child, who's the father of that child. And now the man has children from another woman. He could have a brother and marrying a sister. Because nobody realizes that the child she was inseminated with the same man's sperm. So therefore, Moshe says, although it's permitted, but nevertheless, you should not use a Jew's sperm for insemination. It should be a non-Jew sperm.
In fact, it's very serious because many people who contribute to the sperm banks live for a livelihood. So this person who's been doing this for X years could have thousands of descendants.
Correct.
We just don't know. And they could
Great.
be intermarried. I mean, that's why.
The Rambam writes.
Good line.
The Rambam writes that at the beginning, that he says before Sinai, what was marriage? What was marriage before Sinai? He says a person is walking, sees a woman at a crossroads, they decide they're going to get together and be man and wife. And that's considered marriage. If two Gentiles agree between them they're going to live together as man and wife, and they have that agreement, she's a married woman. If she commits adultery, it's punishable by death. What's considered divorce? They decide they're separating. You don't need a document. They break up. So what happens now? She assumes another mate, and she has a child. Ultimately, it's Umalor Zima. The world is going to be filled with promiscuity because it's going to end up a brother's going to marry a sister. Of course, the same woman You don't know actually who inseminated, who impregnated her. And therefore it becomes a major problem. So Sinai comes, Hashem says, no, marriage is sacred, it's exclusivity to the husband, and therefore you have to undergo through a certain process. She's not permitted otherwise, and has to be terminated with a get. Otherwise you can't keep a record of what is and what's not. And that's what Chazal added to this. We have the concept of havchana. A woman, after she's even widowed or divorced, she's not permitted to marry another man. She has to wait 3 months. Because after 3 months, within 3 months, if she's pregnant from the previous husband, you're going to know it after 3 months. Again, it's to be able to identify the offspring, if it's the previous husband's or it's the new husband's offspring. That's a rabbinic law. And they go so far. What about if a woman's a divorcee since 60 years old, or widowed? We don't make any differentiation. Because if we're going to allow one, it's going to happen. Even the younger person will marry within that 3-month period, and it becomes problems. Therefore, low plug, we don't differentiate. Every marriage has to take place. Only it's permitted after 3 months. Whether it's widowhood or divorce, you have to wait 3 months. It's another discussion. What happens if you have two people married, not Jewish, and they convert? Okay? Also, you wait 3 months. After they decide to convert and they become Jewish, you have to wait 3 months. Why? Because lahapchin being zera kosh zera posul. Because the question is, she may be pregnant from when he wasn't Jewish. So the question, you don't know the pedigree of the child. Is he the father of the child? Is not the father of the child. So again, he's only permitted to re-engage with his wife. That's only after 3 months had passed, after the conversion. Because now you know definitely the child that she conceived is a Jewish child from her husband. Otherwise, you don't know. For the same reason. I'm talking about that. They do. Same thing. They do. You have to wait 3 months for the same reason. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference.
Why? Why do they need?
Is he the father of the child? You want to know the pedigree of the child.
Either he's the son of a ger or he's son of a non-Jew. What's the difference?
In relationship to the father. Let's say he has other children afterwards. Are they siblings?
As far as inheritance.
Not only inheritance is one, but what about siblings? Are they siblings or not?
It's also a child, not a Jew.
Now, are they mamzerim? Let's say you have a brother and sister, pre-marriage and after marriage, pre-conversion afterwards. Let's say they have a child from one another. Is it a mamzer? On a Torah level, it's not a mamzer. Rabbinically, they're not permitted to marry. But on a Torah level, it's not a mamzer. Okay, only Israel was getting the idea. Does he wash the coins? Doesn't he wash the coins? He gets no share. So he's still, either way, whether he's a convert or either way, he has no share. Okay. Okay. Kol mokum sheish kiddushin. Okay, the Mishnah says a principle. Kol mokum sheish kiddushin, and there's no aveira. Omalei Rish Lakish, Reb Shimon Lakish, Reb Yochanan Klodo. Is this principle really fully applicable? The Kol mokum sheish kiddushin min aveira vlad holich achar zocher, where the kiddushin is permitted, and there's no aveira. That the child identifies with the father, Harei Ger, Shenosam Amzeres. The Yesh Kedushin Vein Aveira, Havlad Holich Achar Apogum. The child identifies, the defect goes on the child, although there's no Aveira. Nobody argues this. Correct? The Tanya, Ger Shenosam Amzeres, Havlad Mamzer Div Reb Yossi. Okay? So Rashi explains why. Rabbi Yossi's position is it's ein avera because kal gerim ain't no kal. The congregation of gerim is not called kal, so therefore the provision doesn't apply to a ger. Lo yavo mamzer bekal Hashem. He's not kal Hashem. Omar leg. So Rabbi Yochanan says to his Talmud Rish Lakish, Misabrit Mastis and Rabbi Yossi. Do you mean to say the Mishnah is going to Rabbi Yossi? It's not Rabbi Yossi. Mastis Rabbi Yudei. The Oma Ger lo Yisa Mamzeris. A ger is not permitted to marry Mamzeris. So therefore, v'yesh kedusha, v'yesh adera. So factually, if a ger marries a Mamzeris, it's following the prescription of the Mishnah. It's yesh adera, therefore, the defect goes on the child. V'yesh adera havalad, holech achar apogum. The child identifies with the spiritual defect.
Everybody holds that a ger that marries a Mamzeris
Is a mamzer.
child
Is a mamzer. Nobody argues, even if it's permitted.
What about a whole discussion before about the relationship with the ger, the father?
No, that was a different discussion. No. That's restriction. That's restrict. We're talking about a restriction. The child of a ger who marries a regular Jewish woman, if the child identifies with the father, so the father's a ger. So the child has the status of a ger. As the father has no restriction regarding marriage, the child shouldn't have restriction regarding marriage. That's another principle. That's holy chakra pogum. The defect
Even though it's a point for guilty, it's a legitimate marriage.
doesn't make a difference. But it doesn't contradict the principle of the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is going like Reb Yehuda. Now, so the Rashba says, very interesting. The Mishnah says, the Gemara says the Mishnah is going like Reb Yehuda. We have a problem. We said it earlier. Tosa shows Reb Yehuda Nasi was like Shimon HaTimon, correct? That Chayvi Lavim, the marriage is a marriage, correct? Because what's the example of En Kiddushin? He says, that's Reb Shimon HaTimon, called Reb Kiva, Chayvi Lavim. The person marries a mamzer. It's not a marriage, according to Reb Kiva. Lo Yavu Mamzer Kal Hashem Tzalav, it's not a marriage, correct? Okay. Reb Yehuda in Yevomis concurs with Reb Akiva. So we have a problem.
In that case, in that one case,
You create a problem. Any case, any lav, any chayvi lavim, there's no marriage.
that's what we do.
Reb Yehuda concurs with Reb Akiva. We're saying the Mishnah is going like Reb Akiva. It's going like Reb Yehuda. So the Rashba asks, how could it go like Reb Akiva? Like Reb Yehuda? We've shown clearly the Mishnah is not going like Reb Akiva, right? Because Tosa shows you have a case where there's Aveira, it's Aveira of Yesh Kedushin. According to Reb Akiva, you don't have that. You have Yesh Aveira where it's not permitted, there's a Kedushin. If Reb Yehuda concurs with Reb Akiva, the Mishnah cannot go like Reb Yehuda. So how could the Mishnah say, how could the Gemara say the Mishnah is going like Reb Yehuda? So the Rashba says, doesn't mean to say that the Tan of the Mishnah is Reb Yehuda. That the Tan of the Mishnah accepts Reb Yehuda's position that Kal Gerim is considered Kal. Doesn't mean Reb Yehuda. It means Reb Yehuda's position regarding whether a convert is permitted to marry a Mamzeris.
This is one case.
No, this position, Reb Yehuda, when it says like Reb Yehuda, it means his position regarding what is the status of a ger. Is a ger called Kahal or is a ger not called Kahal? It's, Reb Yehuda personally, no. But the Tana concurs with Reb Yehuda regarding whether a ger is permitted to marry a Mamzeris.
The Tana holds that condition doesn't take effect.
That does take effect, right? Correct.
Reb Yehuda does it.
Reb Yehuda does not, because Reb Yehuda concurs with Rabbi Akiva. Exactly. Well, that's next Gemara's question. That's the Gemara's question. According to that, what does the Mishnah give an example of Yesh Aveira, Yesh Plus Yesh Aveira? It should give the case of Ger Habola who marries a Mamzeris. No, sir, we have a problem. Monavshav. It can't go like Reb Yossi because it contradicts the first principle. And it can't go to Reb Yehuda, seemingly, because otherwise it should give it as the example. And it's not giving it as an example. Right? That's the Gemara's question. Okay, let's go a little further. Someone asks, V'nisniyo. So what does it say in the Mishnah? Right? The Mishnah gives examples. What's considered Yesh Kedushin, Yesh Aveira. So what is it stated? Tana Kol Mokum. The word, when the Tana sets the Kol Mokum, is totally superfluous. Wherever you find Kedushin, Yesh Aveira, the Kol Mokum is addressing the case of Ger marrying a Mamzeris. That is Kedushin, but Yesh Aveira. Therefore, the example doesn't have to be given.
So category that
It's always. No, it's the same thing. But the Tana doesn't have to mention that case because it's alluded to through the principle. Otherwise, well, what do we do principle? If it's not applicable to anything else, you gave me the examples. So what do you have to say? Kol mokom. What do we have to introduce it with a principle? Kol mokom sheish kiddushin v'yesh aveira. It's totally superfluous. No, that's coming to address the mamzer, the ger marrying the mamzeres. Okay? Kol mokom the sefer lasuye comes to include this. Ibo seimel olam Rabbi Yossi. The Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yossi that a convert is permitted to marry a mamzeres, right? Because kal gerim is not called kal, so then it contradicts the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says that this kiddushin is no aveiro, then the defect doesn't identify with the child. Betana ezu limute says, and what is an example of this? ABC, right? Kohen, Levi Yisrael. That's it. So what's the inference of that? Ezu. There's another case. Although there's no aveira, the pagam, the defect, goes upon the child. Although there's no aveira. So therefore the Mishnah will go like Rabbi Yosef. That's what it's saying. V'tana ezu lemute. Okay. Someone asks, Ve'ezu v'sulo. There's no other case. Varicholo. Shenoso Bas Yisrael. We have a case. The Yesh Kedushin Ein Aveiro. Vavelad Holech Achar Azocher. Yeah, a person is the son of a Kohen who marries a Grusha. And he marries a kosher Jewess. Now he has a daughter. La Locha. What is the status of his daughter? Is his daughter permitted to marry a Kohen? Okay? And what? Not a, maybe that's not a pagam, right? But he says, "Cholosh nos basrel the yesh kedushin ve'ein aveira havalad holech achar azocher." No, it should be mentioned, right?
It works.
A chalolo, then she should not be permitted to a kohen. If the father is a cholo, although he marries a kosher woman, which he's permitted her, right? His defect should go upon the daughter.
It does work.
That's we're going quoting right. We're assuming that. Olo kasha. Correct. The story ben Yehuda. Our mission is going because it's not. We even though we rule this way, but there's an opinion that holds no that the child is that the daughter is not a chalola. That when a kohen, although he's a cholo, the son of a kohen is a cholo, marries a kosher woman, the child is purged through the mother, and the daughter assumes the status of the mother, and the daughter is not a chalola. The son's not relevant. Because it's a permitted marriage. Even though a ger to a mamzer is also permitted marriage. Right? Yet the child is a mamzer. But with the friendship between cholol and mamzer. Mamzer is in the legitimacy which applies to all Jews. Cholol is only something specific to the Kohen. To be continued.